US military, which has also released a video of Russian fighter jets harassing American military drones during an operation targeting the Islamic State in Syria on 5th of July. This has been the second such incident this year, according to the military. Now, the US Air Force released drone video footage capturing the incident, highlighting the escalating tensions in the Syrian conflict. According to a statement issued by the commander of the 9th Air Force, Lieutenant General Alexus Grynkewich, 3 MQ-9 Reaper drones were engaged by 3 Russian fighter jets in actions that violate established norms and protocols. Now, remember, in March, the Pentagon had released a video of a similar collision between Russian fighter jets and a US Air Force MQ-9 Reaper drone in international airspace, causing the drone to crash into the Black Sea. While that face-off happened in the Black Sea, this one's taken place in Syrian skies. But what is the message that Russia is trying to send out to the United States? Let's try and get in a sense of perspective. And for that, I'm joined in by my guest, Adel Nazarian, who's a media fellow at the Gold Institute for International Strategy. Many thanks to you, Adel, for joining in. Now, let's begin by asking, what's a territorial message being sent out through these aggressive maneuvers being made by Russia? Is this Russia's way of telling the US to back off?
I think that's definitely the message that's being sent. Although, I will also point the audience's attention to the fact that when President Barack Obama was the commander-in-chief, he made it clear that he would draw a red line in the sand when it came to the use of certain chemicals and certain gases that were obviously used during the course of his presidency, and nothing was really done, unfortunately, to implement that red line. And I think that now, if you want to go towards fast forward several years, you see that with the escalation of tensity between both nations is coming to a head-to-head, that there's more, Russia feels more empowered, frankly, I think, in Syria specifically, because of the fact that there is such a effort to normalize, I'd say, normalize relations between other countries and Syria. And so I think that this is Russia's one of the places where they can affirmatively and definitively show aggression in response to the US's presence in the region and say that, look, we don't agree with what's going on, and this is our way of showing you. And, those MQ-9s were, I think their electric capabilities were kind of damaged by the afterburner that was put out by the Russian military aircraft. So what you're saying, definitely Russia's saying that they are going to use aggression to display their sentiment towards the situation between the US and the former USSR.
Adel, a similar face-off happened in the Black Sea in March this year, but the recent incident in the skies of Syria is a further escalation, considering the Russian fighters deployed parachute flares. What explains Russia's recent aggression?
So I think that the reason for this increased escalation is, there have been clearly normalization efforts with Bashar al-Assad and his government. Many governments have come around the corner, so to speak, and have started normalizing perceivedly with the administration. And of course, with the ongoing proxy war now between the United States and Russia in Ukraine, it is clear that any opportunity, I believe, that any detractors and people who are opposed to, obviously, the United States are going to use airspace and international and maritime space to be able to basically exact their sentiments regarding the ongoing war. When you're at war with another country, then it's basically all games are go in terms of having access to their fighter jets, to their military equipment, and a war is a war in arguably every part of the world in that regard. And I think that this is definitely demonstrably on display here with what happened over the skies of Syria.
Right. Adel, the US drones were in a mission targeting ISIS when the 3 Russian fighter jets initiated their aggression. Why isn't Russia cooperating with the US on ISIS, especially in Syria?
So I think if you take a little bit of a look at the history of Russia's involvement in Syria, it really began in 2011 amidst the backdrop of the Syrian civil
Has the
war.
other guest joined?
And what happened was from 2011 to 2015, they weren't directly involved. But in 2000, of course, Russia has the Tartus military base, which is a strategic asset for the Russian military in the Mediterranean. And in fact, it's been crucial for their presence in the Mediterranean region. And so with the direct military intervention in 2015, you see that Russia became even more significantly involved in Syrian affairs. And while they had part of their initiatives to rebel against ISIS and other rebel factions, you see that Russia's involvement there militaristically turned a little bit away from directly targeting extremist groups such as ISIS and more towards targeting rebel factions who were opposed to the Assad government, the Assad regime, and government, if you want to call it that. And so now that there's a increased escalation once again in terms of in the form of the war in Ukraine, which is a proxy battle between the U.S. and Russia, it's definitely seems more than accurate that we'd see the US and Russia having another face-off in other areas that are contestable from a national perspective, national security perspective. Obviously, both countries are not aligned when it comes to Syria and the role of Bashar al-Assad in that region.